Hey everyone. Um, my name's Sheri, and it's the first time I'm doing this, so apologies if I'm a bit rusty. But I kind of wanted to go through kind of my journey and basically how I got into the gaming industry. So yeah, who am I? So yeah, as I said, my name's Sheri. I'm 24. I turned 24 in October, so only a few weeks ago, and I work here at Techland as sort of an influencer manager, and basically essentially I manage budget and strategy for our influencer marketing piece globally, in sort of current titles that we work on as well as upcoming titles. And prior to that, I worked at an agency called Karis Media back in London, essentially managing a team of 6 executives, sort of ranging between the ages of like 25 to 32. Essentially, I oversaw the sort of execution of influencer marketing strategies across gaming, lifestyle, and sport within the team, including some clients that I'll obviously mention in a second. And prior to that, actually, just as a weird sort of little fun fact, I actually worked in accountancy. So before I got into influencer marketing, I worked in accountancy as a QA tester. So I did a little bit of coding over there as well. But yeah, that's kind of like sort of the basic summary of who I am. And then obviously just in terms of clients that I've worked with, Activision, Tencent, Epic Games, you can obviously see the logos. These are sort of some of my favorite clients to work with when I was working back at the agency. And yeah, obviously this was kind of like, I guess, the stepping stones I kind of used to sort of, I guess, grow within the industry. Obviously taking from these experiences and kind of just learning from each client, how they worked, ultimately their processes, and ultimately making me a better and more valuable asset to the business. Who I really am. So obviously when you talk to a lot of the people on these kind of presentations, you always kind of get a good idea of what they do professionally. And I guess, it kind of helps, I guess, give transparency on what their, I guess, their daily tasks or how they got into the industry. But you kind of, sometimes it's kind of hard to understand exactly who it is that you're talking to, especially when you see the person for who they are now, as opposed to, the person that they was, or the person that, they were before they got into the industry. And I think it's probably worth, for the sake of visibility, giving you guys some of that insight. So I was born in Klin in Kosovo. We immigrated when I was very, very young. When I was about 6 months, we immigrated sort of away from the country. And then I initially moved to Germany for a little bit, at which point, things were not so great, not so amazing. Like, it was tough, obviously, sort of, I guess living in a country that we didn't understand the language of. Eventually it got so bad that we kind of moved to England. And then from there, I kind of spent sort of, I guess, the first few years of my life kind of moving around from house to house, just kind of trying to find a place to settle. The long story short of it is basically, I kind of moved around a lot when I was younger. I wasn't a very good kid when I was younger. I got into a lot of fights and a lot of silly stuff. But ultimately, I eventually stayed at one school, at primary school, in like year 6, which is like 10 years old. And then I eventually went to the same secondary school. But I think the general gist of it is that essentially I wasn't a very good kid when I was younger, and it took a lot of growing up to do, especially when it came to like, I guess like focusing on education and stuff like that. And I never really had a game plan. I was always kind of quite a sort of, I don't know what the word is, but basically I was always very all over the place. I never really had a game plan on what I wanted to do in life, really. But I always enjoyed video games, and that was kind of the one thing I always sort of clinged on to when I was younger. The first thing that my mum bought me when I was younger was I think it was a Nintendo Game Color or Nintendo GameCube, where I basically went and played Pokemon on. And then from there, I got an Xbox, and then I started playing Mass Effect and Halo. And then at that point, I just became fully addicted to consoles, like it was sort of my baby, my idol. And then I just kept playing video games. And I think at that point, I kind of realized I wanted to try and do something into gaming. But, when you're that young, and I assume this is the same for everyone here, like when you're that young, you don't really understand how you can apply, your 2.3 KD on Call of Duty to something in the real world. So a lot of it very much stayed on video games, and I never really kind of understood how I could get past that. But as I kind of got into like sixth form, which is between the ages of 16 and 18, education started getting really tough. And, you know, I was a very hardcore gamer. I wasn't very focused. I wasn't studying a lot. Ultimately, my pastime ended up being playing a lot of video games as opposed to studying. And once that happened, just due to this sort of, I guess, amount of stress at school, I eventually kind of dropped out a subject when I was younger. And I didn't do very well in school, pretty much. That's the kind of long story short of it. After school, my teacher managed to get me a job for an accountancy firm who basically specialized in setting up accountancy software, which I then kind of joined and did an apprenticeship in. And sort of within that job, I never really kind of truly enjoyed it, if I'm being honest with you, because, you know, it just wasn't for me. It was like full of like 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds who have been doing this kind of thing for like 30 years. And there's me who, you know, plays COD and League of Legends all day, who doesn't really have an interest in accountancy all that much. But obviously trying to make sure I get a job post education, because I didn't really want to go to uni. And then, so obviously I kind of just did that job for like 2 years. But eventually, when you don't have inspiration, or when you don't have a focus for a certain subject, especially in the work life, I kind of got tired of it, and I didn't do very well in that job, if I'm being honest with you. I eventually got fired, actually. But then I think that was kind of like the start of, my life, the start of my real life, really. But yeah. So if I'm doing a bad job of explaining this, I'm trying to get through it in a concise way. But yeah, that was me. I wasn't very good at school. Unfortunately, I did a lot of stupid stuff when I was younger. But I think this opportunity of getting fired kind of woke me up a little bit into the sense of what do I really want to be doing in life? And ultimately, what do I have to do to get there? So how I got into the gaming industry. This is the email I actually sent my previous boss. Back when the business was about 20 staff, when the business had about 20 staff members. I just basically sent him this email. This was after about 3 months of unemployment, by the way. So I had been looking for, actually, weirdly enough, this was quite stupid of me, but I was looking for jobs again back into the accountancy industry, because that was the only experience I ever had. And I'd been working in there for about 2 years. I applied for a couple of different places, but couldn't ever seem to find a good fit. Just because I guess my coding skills wasn't very good, but I guess my general passion for the industry wasn't all that there. And after about 3 months, I kind of not got desperate, but like I kind of started looking and exploring even further and further out, until I eventually found Michael Craddock. So he is the owner of Karos, and I found him through a mutual friend who used to play Call of Duty with him. Weirdly enough, he was a big YouTuber. And I just basically sent him this email and kind of sort of listed some other work that I had been doing. I did some sort of SEO and marketing work within our accountancy business, because I basically tried to sort of help with the marketing of the business, even though I was a QA tester. But that kind of experience, I guess, helped me provide almost a small like resume / CV of the experience I had done previously. And then I just basically sent it to Mike. And then after this, Mike sent me a message saying, "Hey, can you drop me a text via this number?" And then I kind of texted him like multiple times for the next 2 weeks, almost like spamming him to, you know, just to hear me out, if you will. And so, yeah, he basically provided me an opportunity. I did the interview. I obviously came in and expressed my passion for the gaming industry. And pretty much it kind of all started from there. But obviously there's a lot to it, you know, than just sending an email. You know, you have to figure out what the keys to these doors are. Now, obviously, I assume a lot of you guys are like doing coding stuff, and this is more like marketing within the gaming industry, but this all kind of applies in the same way. You know, how do you put yourself in a position where you can, you know, increase your possibilities or increase your chance of success, at least getting into the industry, right? I think a lot of this comes down to, I guess, a few factors, but ultimately, the most important one is kind of like, you know, hard work. Like there's going to be very little in this world that's going to be able to replace hard work, and doing lots of stuff prior to you even finishing, you know, university, for example, or any education, or even if you've already finished education and you're now looking for jobs, there's got to be an element of you taking, taking your own opportunities or creating your own opportunities, whether it be through, you know, obviously I don't want to apply it to your world just because I'm not particularly sure about coding, but for example, in my world, it was a case of messaging, you know, esports franchises, or small esports groups on Twitter, for example, guys that had like 1,500, 2,000 followers. And I basically got a group called Riot Gaming, which isn't the same Riot as Riot Games. It's an esports organization, and asking them if they would let me, you know, social media manage their channels. And I did, and they allowed me to do it for a little bit. And I actually ended up investing my own money in like getting graphics artists into sort of rebrand the Twitter accounts, and sort of, I guess, replying to feedback on Twitter and putting posts up for tournaments, etc., etc. Like this opportunity wasn't really there, it never really existed. But there's got to be things that you have to sort of, I guess, overtly do within any industry that you work in to help kind of build up your rapport. And I think basically just doing anything that kind of sits outside the field of university work or outside the field of just, you know, your normal curricular activities is always going to be helpful to, you know, a recruiter, for example, understanding that you're not just here to, you know, get your paycheck at the end of the month. You are kind of here to, you know, hopefully help change the game. Whether it be by making, you know, the next generation of titles, or whether it be by, you know, becoming a team leader and pushing your team in the right creative direction. Like all of these things require a start of some sort. And the easiest way for us to, or for anyone to figure out that you're very interested, or, you know, you're the right person for the team is to kind of prove that, you know, you won't just do things when it's most convenient to you. You want to learn, you want to grow. And I actually, when I was working back at Kairos, I recruited for our influencer marketing team. So although I was overseeing our team as well, I basically just directly interviewed and hired 3 new members that joined the team over the span of the 9 months that I was a campaigns manager before leaving. And the things that I kind of found most important to the people that I was interviewing, and this is, I think, if I'm being completely honest with you, this was pretty much the sort of determining factor as to whether I'd hire or not hire, was, you know, how much do you want the job? Like, how much do you want to grow and be in this industry? And people can prove that in various ways. I had a guy who, as a part of his university degree, actually put together an essay, or sort of like a documentation of sorts, surrounding where influencer marketing came from and how far it really dated back. And the guy was like telling me stuff I didn't even know. He said like influencer marketing dated back to the Roman times, where they were sort of giving medicine, or, you know, these big businesses were giving medicine to like influencers back in the, you know, 8th century or whatever. It's like, I had no idea what this guy was talking about, but clearly, you know, he had so much knowledge and he had researched influencer marketing to such a degree that, like, to me, it almost became obvious at that point that I want to hire this guy. Again, you'll have to learn how to apply that into your own fields, because obviously in terms of coding, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert, but just to reiterate, hard work is absolutely key, and the ability to want to learn at all stages of your career is an absolute necessity. But yeah, that's kind of like my thoughts on that. Connecting the dots. This is quite important, especially in the early days of your career, but even just before your career. When it comes to building up your CV, when it comes to building up your, I would say, I guess, your resume of work that you've done, being able to connect the dots on how this experience, or how this job, or how this sort of game that you built, or how this, you know, thing that you've done, how this links to you and your career within the gaming industry is key, right? Because, you know, when I first started thinking about joining the influencer marketing world, I had no idea really what I could even put on my CV, if I'm being completely honest with you. Like, there was obviously a couple of small things around like the social media management stuff, but I never really particularly understood how most of my experiences in life could really apply to the industry. And I think being able to connect the dots and having that insight as to like how this thing is going to help you become a better person and how this thing is going to help improve you is kind of that motivational factor that sometimes I think people forget about. Because and a perfect example of this is when my first month at Kairos. So when I first joined as an intern, we basically had an overload of work. Gameloft kind of basically hit us up asking for like 1,000 names for an influencer marketing campaign. And off the bat, like people were kind of like, you know, we already knew this was going to take a hell of a long time to get sorted. And right off the bat, I kind of immediately looked at this as an opportunity to kind of prove myself and kind of just be like, look, this is such an easy way for me to like prove to the team that like I'm a hard worker and I want to kind of grow and develop in this industry. And also, what's the best way to start off working in any industry than having to research 1,000 names, right? Like, while that sounds boring and garbage, right? Like, you just have to sit there, you know, scanning through thousands of names to find the right influencers. This is also the easiest way for me to like take my knowledge from 0 to 100 within the span of a week and a half. And so what I ended up doing for the first like month pretty much was basically working from like 9 till 8 pretty much every day. And I'm not saying that's a good idea. I'm not saying you know, working excessive hours on sort of like at work is great. It really isn't for the most part. Like, it's not something I promote, but when you're trying to learn and you're trying to grow in any industry, there's got to be an element of sacrifice, right? If you want to sort of get into a better position, and understanding what that sacrifice actually means to you helps you kind of, I guess, or helped me at least motivate me to kind of do more and be more. And that's quite important. And I understood almost off the bat that like, if I can do this now, it will help me for years to come. And I applied that at every stage of my career. Like, there was 4 or 5 key moments within my time within influencer marketing where most people within the business was like, absolutely not. There was a campaign we had with Ubisoft at Christmas that just hadn't gone well, to be frank with you, and no one wanted to like redo the proposal, no one wanted to redo the deck, and this was like the 21st of December. So everyone just went off home, and me and the client was just sat at like 10 p.m. talking about how we can fix fix the presentation and how we can kind of make it more closely suited to what she wanted from us as an agency. And because of that, we got the campaign, luckily, which was 40K. And then after that, we got another 200K campaign. But that all kind of resulted directly into me being like, look, if I do this now, 1, I build the connection with Ubisoft, I build that client relationship. But 2, I'm seen as a reliable member of the team. No matter how stressful it gets within the business, and believe you me, this was like one of our biggest clients at the time and was super stressful. And off the back of that, I'm going to have this kind of experience on how to deal with highly time-sensitive scenarios and sort of how to push forward in those situations without the anxiety, without the stress, moving forward for years to come. So connecting the dots is important, because you're always going to do something within your even your education or even post-education and moving into the sort of direction of the gaming industry, that while in that point you don't understand why you're doing and you get annoyed by the fact that you're having to do this, you'll quickly realize that, like, if you kind of start putting yourself into the mindset of, okay, cool, well, how does this actually impact my career? Like, how does this help me grow and become a better member? At that point, everything just starts becoming like almost like calculations, like 1 + 1 = 2. Like, you stop thinking about stuff, like, oh my God, like I'm having to do this extra work. Or, oh my God, I'm having to, I can't be asked to do X amount of work on the side, whether it be as a hobby or whatever it is. So that's just kind of like one of my key kind of factors as to like how I keep myself motivated, but also how I got myself into the mindset of doing extra work. I know that sounds dumb, but yeah, extra work is going to help you. An extra sort of like a larger portfolio is always going to help you get into the industry a lot easier. Once you get into the industry, obviously focusing on improving yourself is key, and this all kind of, I guess, revolves around that. What's the objective? This is something I had to learn. This is something I unfortunately learned quite late into my, I guess, post-education life. I didn't really understand what my objective was when I went into financial accountancy. I realized sort of within the second year that like this is just not something I want to do full time. I don't know why I kind of even got into it. I obviously got into it to just kind of like have a job post-education, but once I started kind of actually trying to plan out my objectives in life and what I kind of wanted to do, which didn't really happen until, if I'm being honest with you, until I got fired, until I got desperate. Like, I was 3 months out of the job. Once I started kind of planning that out and figuring out like how do I want to go about, getting a job in X industry? And for me, I wasn't sure if I wanted to get into coding, or whether that be going for a sort of university degree, or whether I wanted to sort of go into marketing within the gaming industry. Once I kind of started narrowing those down, you then start trickling, everything starts trickling down in the sense that you then start researching, okay, cool, well, what qualifications and what kind of experience are they looking for people working in the influencer marketing industry? And then you kind of figure out, okay, well, where can you actually find these jobs? And then you go, okay, well, these are the jobs that are available. What industries do I have to get into, whether it be agency side or publisher side? Like, how many different options do I have available to me? And then if you keep like kind of trickling it down that way, you kind of almost end up building yourself like a roadmap of how, your expectation on what steps you need to undergo to make yourself or put yourself in the best possible position to get into X job. There's some of you guys that might want to work at, Ubisoft or Activision or Techland even, and you want to work as a coder, but how do you get to that place? There's a lot of research that ends up having to go behind it, really, and a lot of it comes down to from like resume building. When I worked at the agency, I had no issue, working the stupid hours that I was working on most parts of the year, because I already knew that, for me, the objective here isn't to just work at Kairos forever working 9 to 9s. It's to work at a publisher and hopefully grow and learn new things client side. But before I could do that, there's a lot of experience that I'd have to pick up. And for you guys, it's going to be the same thing, whether it be not directly getting into the industry for a publisher first, whether it be working at a sort of a small indie game company, or not even a gaming related company, just working in some sort of field of coding or marketing, if that's kind of the direction that you want to head in, whether it be agency side or, you just have to figure out a way of building up your portfolio. And there will be businesses and opportunities available to you that, although they don't immediately get you into the door of the big publishers, they are the start to how you get your foot into the door of these big publishers, or, big agencies or big companies that you want to work at. And you always have to start small, because this isn't a sprint. Like, I think sometimes people think, okay, well, I want to work at Ubisoft when I get out of sort of like university, and then all of a sudden they're disappointed by the fact that there's only 4 or 5 jobs relating to their role, and they apply for all of them and then they don't get in. It's never that simple. And while I hope that everyone can get in that way, sometimes you have to understand that everything just happens step by step. And that's kind of what I did when I was at Kairos. I took every opportunity that I had, every campaign that I had, as an opportunity to help me grow. You're going to have to look at it from the similar perspective. If there's companies that are doing work in your field, and maybe they don't necessarily relate to gaming, but they give you the experience that you need to become very good in your industry, then absolutely take up the opportunity and then take it from there, right? You guys are all going to be like 22, 23. I'm 24 right now. Like, you're not in a rush. You need to just figure out I guess like a long-term plan in terms of how you want to get to the industry. And the second you start doing that, everything just becomes a lot easier. I mean, any questions? I mean, that's pretty much the entirety of the presentation. Sorry if it's not very concise, but again, if you have any questions on specifics, this is my first time doing this, so please do not hesitate to ask me questions. We will be doing a Q&A, I believe. But yeah, I do hope that was somewhat useful. 2.5 years ago, I wasn't even working in the gaming industry, to put it into perspective. And to be honest, I had no plans initially working in the gaming industry. And then one mishap happened, and then I kind of had almost a reality check in terms of what I wanted to do in life. And then I kind of started putting into places the steps that were needed to get into the industry, whether it be doing by outside experience, again, like the social media stuff that I was doing, or working even at my accountancy firm within the marketing department to kind of help boost our presence online. Those kind of things, although they were small, they were enough of a kind of like kick up, to kind of get, let my boss give me a chance. And then once I had my chance, once you get your chance within this industry, whether it be for an internship, as was my opportunity, I did an internship for 3 months. You absolutely have to take it. And that's really what it is. Like, you're fighting against, hundreds of other people trying to do the exact same job as you. Working in the gaming industry is something that lots of people want to do, whether it be mainstream or coders or to the more niche jobs within the industry. There are thousands and thousands of people that want to do it. What makes you different, and what makes you want the job more than everyone else? And that's quite important, I think. But yeah, any questions, again, feel free to help my email, or obviously we can kind of just talk about it, I guess, after this presentation. So that is me.